Hey everyone, it's Thanksgiving, and that means we're not doing a live show this week. We're pulling episode 250 out of the vault instead, kicking in the door to cybersecurity with Angela Marafino, aka MegatronAL. As the title suggests, this episode focuses on breaking into cybersecurity and is focused on newcomers. Angela discusses her career path and some interesting insights as a relative newcomer to the cybersecurity field. Some of those highlights include the harmful impact of labels like imposter syndrome, her career journey from a non-tech background to becoming a program manager at Microsoft, the importance of diverse backgrounds in cybersecurity and the need for companies to train individuals on the job, the growing role of automation, AI, and machine learning in cybersecurity, and the need for cross-product education for cybersecurity professionals, and finally, tips for finding good regional food when traveling to unfamiliar places. I hope you enjoy listening to this interview as much as I did making it, and as always, thanks for watching.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we talk security vendors and aren't afraid to name names. It's Enterprise Security Weekly. This topic expands on something we've been talking about for a while, that there's not just one way into an InfoSec career. In fact, I think it's one of the most interesting careers out there when looking at how people get into it. We're also going to discuss some of the crappy corporate speed bumps you might hit along the way. There's no shortage of those. For an industry that desperately needs talent, some organizations are shockingly bad when it comes to fixing issues with culture and management and stuff like that. So very excited today to introduce Angela Marafino.
Hi, Adrian. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
Good. Katie, Tyler, hi. Sorry about your backup, Katie. Really sorry.
Really it all worked out. A little money and everything's fixed.
I have two initial, I don't know if they're necessarily questions, but comments. Someone please tell me it is Thursday and not Wednesday because I panicked. And also, you guys put the proof point ad in front of the Microsoft person's session. It's okay. No. I'm just giving you all a hard time because I can't.
For that. It's somebody's job to prevent that from happening.
I love that. You know, like maybe it was on purpose and maybe it wasn't. And if so, sneaky.
But Microsoft does so many things. Like, I don't know how we could avoid.
Can you do anything? Yeah, good point. Yeah. Then you would have no ads. Fair. That's fair.
I think we're kind of busted no matter how we go there.
Oh, I love it. Anyway, yeah, nice to be here.
Yeah. So you are, I guess maybe I'll start out by asking what you do at Microsoft. You're a program manager with the Security, Compliance, Identity, and Management Organization of Experiences and Devices. Microsoft's a big organization, so I guess the bigger the organization get, the longer the titles get, right?
Yeah. And I'm sure, you ask me again in a couple months to a year, there will be either 5 more words or all of those words will be combined into one other word to describe what team or org I'm on. So stay tuned, I guess. But yeah, so starting out I focus in security. So along with all the other things that my teammates do, I'm working on mostly like Microsoft Defender stuff, as well as, some cloud. We're incorporating cloud, and also identity management and compliance are working together. So we're all kind of working as one under the experiences and devices team. But to your point, I'm a program manager who focuses on the customer aspect of using security and making sure that they're using our products to their best ability, right? So kind of being that middle person between customers and engineers, which I really enjoy because I get to see both sides of everything and stay technical as well as have those relationships with external individuals.
And let's talk a bit about how you got into security, because I think you have a more interesting path than most. And I feel like you figured out like a lot of the tricks and secrets of getting into things quickly and networking and things like that. Certainly a lot quicker than I did. Some of the stuff that you're doing now, it took me 10, 15 years into my career to realize to even do that stuff.
Sure. And this isn't the way it is, but like networking with a big N or a little N, like, not like computer networking, but people networking, right?
Right.
What we're talking about. So yeah, to be fair, I actually do know quite a few people who have really more fascinating paths to security or tech than myself, but that's for another time. But anyway, yes, there are quite a few diverse backgrounds on how to get here, and there's no one right or wrong way. So I had no prior like tech education. Don't have a computer science degree. Didn't do anything related to computers or technology in college. I went to school for fine arts the first time because, as you and I have previously discussed, I grew up in a time where my parents and I guess teachers and mentors were like, if you don't go to school for something you enjoy, you're going to be miserable for the rest of your life.
Follow your passion.
Yeah. And I, even then as like a 17-year-old, I was like, really? Like, you want me to, like, I'm good at art? Are you sure? Like, prove to me that you're sure that you want to like pay for that. And they're like, yeah, like, okie dokie, which it was fun. And I learned a lot. And obviously you have to take other courses before you can even focus on your major. So luckily I learned something, but, I couldn't decide on one thing in art, as most things in my life. So, it took me a while to figure out, okay, I need to do something that's going to like, let me do art as a side project and hobby and pay for that and pay for me living and like life. So I went back to school the second time for pre-law, and I like happened to get a job at a law firm and was like, I like this. And I like talking to people, and it's interesting and it changes a lot based on what type of law you're doing. And I like the research side. So I was like, I could do this. I went back and got the like bachelor's for like to be a paralegal, which then would help me apply to law schools, which I also did. And then like in the process of doing that, I was like, do I want to be an attorney? No. I just wanted the education, and I wanted to do like digital law office management and refresh. I was working in the Southeast in like very old law firms that are using paper everything, and like, is very behind the times. So I was like, I can help with that. But then I was like, do I need to go to law school to like take on that sort of role somehow? No. Okay. And then took about a year to research like what in tech I want to do, including talking to people that I knew who were like developers and programmers and anybody who had any type of relevant experience, and make my decision. So it ended up being like, okay, I read one article in a magazine that was like describing cybersecurity, like the people who are best suited for it, I guess. Like, do you enjoy puzzles? Are you, want to continue to learn things every day because you're going to have to, and on and on. And I was just like, this fits me. And then it was like, okay, there's these many open roles and every industry needs them. And so I was like, okay, I should do this whether I like it or not. Like, it's just logical, but it ended up being the right thing for me. So I took a 6-month boot camp from there and switched careers completely, and have now been in cybersecurity for 3 years. So that's the short story.
Yeah, I didn't even know these boot camps existed, but it looks like you covered a ton of ground in that boot camp. Yeah. So it seems like it was totally worth it. I mean, from just looking at it, you tell me, but it seems like, I don't know, I've tried hiring people with cybersecurity degrees, and I've been disappointed in the knowledge that they came out of those degree programs.
Oh, like traditional bachelor's degrees. And
yeah.
Is that what you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, like a degree in forensics, computer forensics or something like that, or some of the ones I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, right, all schools and all degrees aren't created equal, and that's why some are different than others, and the teachers are different too, and all that. But I had a neighbor who was actually in one of those degree programs at the time of me taking my boot camp, and he, we'd run into each other, and he'd be like, well, what are you learning right now? And I'm like, well, we're doing hands-on labs in Linux, and I like explain things to him, and he's like, we're just reading books. And I was like, okay, cool. Let me know if you want me to come over and show you something useful. And, so it's like kind of painful to hear that because I'm like, I'm so sorry, but, I can't help you really like with that situation. So I think that's the difference, right? Is it like, you're going to ramp up really, really quickly, but also you have to be able to make that commitment to do that. So, is every night for months, putting in extra work outside of just the class material and weekends, and you don't have a life and you have to be okay with that. And so it's difficult. I wouldn't say it's easy, but also like I wasn't going to go back and get another bachelor's degree. That was not an option.
Yeah, not a third.
I find this amazingly interesting, your background, Angela, like really, really interesting. I have a slightly different background because I actually do have a master's degree in cybersecurity. So I actually went through the formal 2-year program, and I really love the fact that there's so many different paths to get to the destination, right? And each one is unique, and each one gives certain background. And I don't know that there's any way to say that one lends itself to a different result than another, but it's all about how you apply it, right? And so I think that story that you have and where you came from is very interesting. I also want to call out another little piece here about the music connection, right? I have found that people with music backgrounds, as you can see, I have a guitar back here. People that like music tend to like cybersecurity too. And I wonder if there's some kind of correlation, or what you think that there might be a correlation on the creativity aspect of cybersecurity. Have you thought about that at all?
I have one too here. I think it's like the right brain, left brain thing, right? Like, I don't want to talk about other people because I'm the one on the show, but I will. I have a friend who is a technical program manager. She went to Juilliard first and taught music to children, and then is a musician, and then decided to get into tech. So it's like crazy. I think what I like to tell people, because I actively try to mentor individuals who are trying to get into cybersecurity or are early in their career, is any experience you have will probably lend itself to something in cybersecurity if you can just make that connection. So mostly communications, just can you talk to people, period, at all. Whether that's formal, as my example, legal, emails and correspondence, being professional in that aspect is very important, because now the younger, younger people, younger than myself, and myself included, I guess, we've grown up with shorthand and text and acronyms, and you can't type that to customers. You can't communicate like that. And so, professional communication is important, but also empathy with your customers. So even something you worked you were in some type of customer service situation, whether that be technical computer support or I don't know, food service, right? You have to understand that yes, not everyone is super nice when they're eating, but you don't know what's going on with their life. And yes, but also be nice to servers. But it's you don't ever know what's going on with people. So just trying to listen to them and ask the right questions and so on.
Yeah, but then when you couple that with I think that the net result from that is that you have, not you personally, but in general, people have the ability to make anything fit into cybersecurity. There's a need for all different aspects of it, right? And having gone through that, right, I've done everything from R&D individual to, deep R&D stuff to being in marketing and an analyst. And I've done so much stuff in the breadth of cybersecurity that there's always room to fit in no matter what your skill set and background. But the flip side of that, and I'm gonna refer to the notes we have on you and your background a little bit here to transition the discussion. The flip side of that is it's very easy to fall into the imposter syndrome trap, right? Sure. And I've had it for the bulk of my career, right? There's always oh, I'm not good enough to do this, or I'm not good enough to do that, until you do it, and then you break through, right? I mean, have you stumbled on that? Have you had to work through that? And if so, do you have any tips?
I have lots of tips.
That's a ball.
I have not stumbled.
That's a ball of wax.
It is.
Bring that up as the second part of the discussion. But
I feel I'm going to get stoned in the street. For my opinion,
I'm not sure Tyler knows what he stepped into.
It's okay.
Uh-oh.
No.
Am I in trouble?
Look, I want to first off say I've had great mentors who have and I've educated myself on enough to be dangerously self-empowering to be like, no, I belong here. Nobody can tell me otherwise. My concern is that now that imposter syndrome as a universal statement to the world and social media make like more people are aware of the fact that it is a thing. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, because I know that it does, but if you look up and research like trends on how frequently it's been used over the past decade as opposed to like initially when the term was coined, it's so much more prevalent now. And I don't know if it's because people are actually feeling that, or they just don't know what else to call the feeling that they're having. So for me, when I have something that someone would describe as imposter syndrome, it's me not having prepared enough. And that's just I need to handle that and deal with it. And maybe I didn't have enough time to prepare myself. And in those cases, like, cool, someone threw me into something that like I didn't have time to prepare for, which means I'm unprepared, but it wasn't necessarily my fault. And so I think some of it is manageable imposter syndrome, I guess, if that makes any sense. Of like, I think some of it is not necessarily the same as what imposter syndrome has traditionally been pinned as.
That's a super interesting color on it for sure. I think everybody experiences it in their own way, and the definition of what it even is vague, right? And that's I think what you're getting at. But I think it's your experience there is definitely very valuable, and I love the way that you actually take it as a mentorship mentee kind of thing. Like, hey, I can whether you're actually feeling that in the technical clinical sense or not is kind of irrelevant. It's what can we do to help make each other better, and you're really focusing on that. That I think is the amazing positive of the story.
Yeah, and I feel strongly about like, maybe don't tell people that they have imposter syndrome, right? Like,
sure, yeah.
Maybe just ask them how they're feeling. And then, if you want to describe the fact that like you feel like this is what you have, they may say, oh, that sounds sort of what I'm experiencing, but like, maybe it isn't that, right? So I think there's deeper questions that need to be asked in those conversations.
Yeah. And I think this is actually a good segue into that, Angela. And this was something I, before reading that, was it Harvard Business Review article? I wasn't really aware of this, but using imposter syndrome as a label to kind of take away from someone, and their achievements and what they're actually struggling with, and the fact that it can be used as a label to actually put cultural problems on the individual, instead of addressing issues where maybe it's not an open and welcoming environment. You just say, oh, that person has imposter syndrome.
Yeah, like, are we? So for context, I had this opinion a while ago, and then that there's this Harvard Business Review article that came out, and I was like, oh God, this is like the closest thing that I can find that kind of describes how I feel about it, and I shared that publicly. But yeah, it's like, don't hold people back, and don't try to like brush off their concerns if it's, hey, they're not getting the training that they need to excel. Like, how do we help them get that training? Or like, are we thinking about these things rather than just trying to pinpoint that, or something like, I don't know, like I have ADD, but somebody could just feel like, you're really bad at focusing. And I'd be like, yeah. And then you must have ADD. And I feel like, well, yeah, but why would you just tell me that without, asking further questions, right? So it's kind of similar, I believe.
Yeah, and I think and then the flip side of this, is the idea that confidence and competence are somehow related, and the flip side that people with almost the opposite of imposter syndrome, tend to get away with stuff just because they seem so confident and people believe in them because confidence is a leadership quality. But they actually have no idea what they're doing. And I feel like that relates to, at least personally, a lot of the horrible management experiences I've had, in the past, where folks are just kind of thrown into management positions and, with no formal training and, just go with their ego, let their ego lead the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been very lucky in my entire security career, the short one I've had so far. I've had really great managers, but I know that like barriers to entry exist. And I talk to so many people who don't believe in themselves yet enough because they haven't been told enough that they can do this and that it's not as hard as it has seemed in the past, or that some people make it seem, like those individuals that you mentioned, because, right, again, they probably didn't want to be there in the first place. They got moved into security because they were the network person or whatever it was, and didn't really have the money or ability to expand the team. So here you are now security manager, SOC manager, whatever it is, right? And so they're never going to want to they didn't want to expand their knowledge. They didn't want to grow. And most importantly, do they want to help people be secure, whether that's their company or the world in general or anyone, right?
So you're newer security. And so I'm curious, because the rest of us on here have been in the industry for a little bit. So you're newer. Where do you see the industry going from your short time? Because it's very different looking at it over the long term, but I think in the last 3 to 5 years, we've seen some really big changes, not only in the types of people who are in security, but in terms of where the market's focusing and how the market's focusing. We're going to get into a little of that in the news, but it would be interesting to hear from a fresh set of eyes what you've picked up on and your thoughts.
Sure. And just because I didn't say this earlier, all my opinions are mine and not my employer's, but I do feel as though, right, first of all, non-traditional backgrounds, one, but also companies and organizations being willing to train people on the job. Not saying that you should take someone off the street who doesn't know anything about a computer and train them. But, if someone comes from a boot camp and they're like, I know all of this stuff and I can do these things, and maybe I just don't know this one thing you're asking for, can you train me to do that? Yes. Great. Not necessarily being so picky with the hiring is going to be really important. But I think automation and AI, machine learning, and I don't want to use those buzzwords, but I did. So just really being able to work with that technology and not necessarily keep it separate. Because right now I feel as though we're not working together as teams, just in general, to kind of utilize both technologies, right? It's just like manual processes, teams looking at, security incidents, but how can we really do more to incorporate both? So starting to do more cross-product education for security individuals, I think, is what's going to be important. But that's tough because it also takes time to learn that, and those concepts are vastly different.
So as we kind of wind down the interview here, I was wondering, Angela, if you could share any tips on finding really good regional food when traveling to an unfamiliar place.
Really good regional food when traveling. How did we get here? I love food, but for me, I think it's one, what is the thing of the country that or have heard, possibly maybe via an online search. It's this is the food of the people here. Try that first, right? And then you need to use the internet. You need to use the internet and read the reviews. And if you don't read the reviews, it's your fault, whatever you get, right? So read the reviews, see what place is the best, but also just because a place has a super long line doesn't mean that there's not a place down the street that is also just as good. So, if somebody's but this one around the corner is the same, go to the one around the corner. You don't want to wait 2 hours for some food. And then second, try something that you don't know what it is, can't pronounce it, and have never experienced it. I think that's also very fun. But again, make sure it's not like, roe and you like can't eat roe, but you don't know what the word is in that language. Like, double check yourself. I would just say use the internet to your advantage and don't just like aimlessly walk around.
So best foodie town you've been in?
Paris.
Very quick answer on that.
I think about it frequently.
Didn't even think twice.
Yeah. So good. I don't know. I'm currently in Seattle. The food's not bad here, but I don't know. Like, I really like Hispanic food. So Miami was really good for that. I think it really depends on what you want, right?
Cuban food is
New Orleans obviously has really good food, and that's totally different. So I don't know. There's a place for everything. It's just, what do you want, really? Now I'm hungry. Thank you.
Also, I want to take a moment to kind of plug some of the stuff you do. As I mentioned early on, you do a lot of stuff in the space. A lot of it is really, gives back to the community. It's educational stuff, beneficial. I love the fact that you have a book club. You have a hacker book club.
Yeah, I love the book club. It's my favorite thing. So it was started by Chloe Mistagi like 2 years ago. And then I was like, can I please help you with this? Because it sounds super fun. I ended up taking it over just because of, like personal stuff, and everybody's busy all the time. But I no matter how busy I am, I'm not dropping book club because it's fun. So we've done anywhere from like cybersecurity advice books, like Tara Wheeler's Women in Tech, which is amazing for anyone, even if you're not a woman. It's just great advice. To there's like the Tribe of Hackers series, which talks about different types of individuals in the field, and it's just like goes through questions, and you can get your questions answered there, and it's phenomenal. To we just recently read Neuromancer, so like it's kind of all over the place, but we tried to not make it like either extremely technical the whole time or not technical at all. So it's just fun. It's always a very small group, like under 10 people, but I really like it that way because it's laid back. I would love more people to come, but it's a fun thing. It's growing and getting bigger, but we keep it really lax. Like if somebody's like, I haven't read it all, and I'm like, that's great. You still want to listen? Cool. So we just, it's mostly just people that hang out and talk about a book rather than here's what we're going to read and here's what we're going to discuss. So it's enjoyable.
And we've got, I've got links to the book club, and you're also a host on a podcast as well.
Yeah, so I'm under the ITSP Magazine podcast channel with Chantel Sims. We host the Focal Point podcast. More episodes coming soon. We took a little bit of a life sabbatical there for a minute, but it's been really great. We get to speak with a lot of people about diversity and inclusion in tech, and also some of those backgrounds I talked about previously of not the traditional computer science to, whatever it may be. Which has been really great and eye-opening, but also we try to talk about like current things that are going on in the world. So it's a blast. I would say check it out if you haven't already. And if you want to be on it, please let me know.
Awesome. We've got links to the podcast, to the Twitter account for the Hacker Book Club, which has a link in the profile to the Discord server that they use. And Angela, thank you for joining us on Enterprise Security Weekly today.
Thanks for having me. And I would just like to say, for anybody out there who's curious about what to do, just do all the things and say yes to all the opportunities until you physically can't anymore, because you've taken on all the opportunities. Thanks, Adrian.
I feel seen.